Since axolotls are neotonic animals, meaning they stay in their larval form their entire life despite reaching sexual maturity, we base their developmental stages off of their growth rather than their age. Basically, you can't guess an axolotl's age based off of its size. Since we can't group them by age like we can with a lot of other animals, we group axolotls' developmental stages like this. Measuring from nose to tail tip, if they're an inch or less, we call them hatchlings. If they're 1 to 3 inches, we call them babies. At 3 to 9 inches, we call them juveniles. This is 6, for example. And adults should be 9 inches or longer. My female spinelli is 15 inches long. The speed they grow at depends on their genetics and how well they're cared for. Things like whether they're eating enough of the right kind of food or being kept in a properly sized and cycled aquarium. Understanding that their developmental stages do not coordinate with age as much as their length is important for a couple reasons. The first one is that the type and amount of food they require relies on their size, not their age. For example, baby axolotls of 1 to 3 inches long will require smaller foods like brine, shrimp, bloodworms, and blackworms. But once they hit the size of a juvenile between 3 to 9 inches, they'll need to be moved on to larger worms to sustain their growing bodies. You could have both of those sizes in the same clutch, so that's why we can't feed them the same food just because they're the same age. Baby axolotls won't be ready to move up to larger food, and larger axolotls might not make it to their full-length potential if they're kept on a baby's diet for too long. The second reason it's important to understand that their developmental stages are based off of length rather than age is because length alone is what tells us when it's safe to keep them on substrates like fine sand, which becomes safe once the axolotl has reached 6 inches or longer, not a specific age. Any axolotl who is under 6 inches long and being kept on fine sand is at risk of impaction, which includes dwarf and stunted axolotls. If it hasn't reached 6 inches long, no matter how many years it's been alive, keep it off of sand. But here's where it gets tricky, because the only exception to that length over age developmental stage rule is when it comes to confirming an axolotl's sex or whether it's sexually mature or not. That's because all axolotls look like females until they reach sexual maturity, where males will develop a more swollen cloaca than females, which could happen at any time between a 6-month-old 6-inch long axolotl to a 1.5-year-old axolotl who's 11 inches long. Because of that large range, there's no specific length or age that it will happen at, so we use the process of elimination by using what breeders and hobbyists call the 18-month rule. This is just the process of waiting 18 months as a safety net before paying attention to what's going on behind your axolotl's back legs, since usually a year and a half will be more than enough time for males to make themselves known. If they haven't developed a swollen cloaca by that age, it's safe to assume you've got a female, though there is the really rare, really late blooming male, but we'll keep it simple. And just as a reminder to anyone who's wondering why this matters, you can't keep male and female axolotls together ethically. So if you want more than one in the same tank, you have to keep them separated until you can confirm that they're the same sex, or you take the risk of the female being bred to death. But besides that gray area, most of what you'll need to know about your axolotl's development should be based off of their length rather than the calendar.